guys, and welcome to another video. Before we get into the actual video setup, I wanted to show this spread that I made to keep track of a big craft fair that I am going to be participating in this April. I'm running a table at Mythica Faerie Market with a friend, and it's going to be on April 27th in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So if that is something you guys are interested in going to, definitely keep a lookout for my table. But I wanted a place to actually keep track of all the projects that I wanted to make for the craft fair and how far along I was in the process for each thing. I'm hoping to make some coasters, some stickers, and some fairy prints since it is a fairy market. I think making a spread like this to keep track of big projects can be really beneficial, especially projects with tons of little parts that you have to keep track of or steps that you have to keep track of. So don't be afraid to just add random spreads like this into your bujo during the year if you feel like you need it. Your bujo is meant to help you organize, so don't be afraid of that. I'm also helping to organize another craft fair in Byram, New Jersey in early May. So I'll put the link to both craft fairs in the description, so make sure you check them out if you're in New Jersey or Pennsylvania. And then of course I'm just going to mark the edge of this page with washi tape so I can come back to it really easily. And then it is done. Now moving on to my actual merch setup. For those of you who have been following along with my videos so far, you know what book I chose for this month, but I also wanted to show you the cover that this book was printed with. Now the host is by Stephanie Meyer, the same author that did Twilight, and I really do love this book, and I'll get more into why I like it so much during my weekly setups, but because it was by an established author, they really did depend on her name to sell the book, and I always thought that this cover was kind of a cop-out because of that. Like, they didn't feel the need to make it good, so they didn't pay someone to make it good. And I really did fight with this cover, and I did lose a lot of footage when I transferred it over to the iPad, and I will apologize for that in advance, but you will get to see a little bit of my process. So I started the idea generation for this process on my iPad because it's a good way to sketch a lot of versions of something very quickly and lay down color very fast to get a feel for a lot of different ideas. If I were doing this for a client, these sketches, I guess, would be a lot more refined, but because I'm just doing it for myself, I kind of know, or I can visualize what I was going for, so I don't really need to flesh it out beyond a very fast sketch. But if I don't really have a firm idea of what I want, I will spend a couple hours exploring all of these different ideas. And once I decided on a composition and concept that I really liked, I then moved it on to another canvas that was the actual size with the front and back cover to really define it a bit more. And then for some reason I really got stuck on the idea of doing this in gouache, and then I remembered that I didn't really have a lot of experience using gouache, and I don't actually know how to use gouache, so it very quickly went downhill from there. I did try to do this twice, but the first time the watercolor paper just warped so badly that it got really difficult to work with. And then when I tried it again on illustration board, my sister's cat, Oreo, lovingly donated his fur to the project, and I scratched the illustration board trying to get his hair out of the paint. And I just thought, man, this is kind of a sign that I really should just do this digitally. I did manage to keep the background of the sky, which I really liked, by scanning it in, which I thought was really nice, and I really liked the texture of the paint and the stars because Stars are a really hard thing to do digitally because you really want them to be really random, and most brushes have a generated pattern, even if it is very subtle, that your brain kind of picks up on it and you're like, that's not quite right. So true randomization with just like paint flicks, I always thought was the way to go for that. And I did lose the footage of rendering the faces, and I know that is a huge part of this cover, but I did get me rendering her hair, and I thought the idea of her hair kind of changing into the desert landscape across the spine and back cover was a really cool concept. So I hope you guys like that part. But this design is for a book jacket, so it includes the back cover and the inside flaps of the jacket, and I'm not going to include those in my actual setup, but I kind of want to print it out and exchange it for the book jacket that I have and don't like, just for me to have because I think it's really cool. And now I get to put it in my book portfolio as well, which is awesome. Now we are getting into the actual setup video. Here I am setting up my March mood spread, and I got a really good question recently on how this actually helps me manage my depression. And the thing about depression is, at least for me, is that I want to be able to identify trends and downward spirals. And to do this, you really do need data because it is so easy for me to just start on a downward spiral and just get lower and lower and lower without realizing it. And catching it in the early stages really does make it easier for me to recover from that. So, writing down my moods basically helps me keep records so I can identify these spirals or trends that happen really often. For instance, I know that I will probably experience 2 to 3 mood swings leading up to and while I am on my period, and I was able to figure this out by looking at my moods around my menstrual cycle and identifying that trend. This also helps with the downward spirals by catching it very early, because I know if I'm in my 4th or 5th day of just feeling really tired and grumpy, that something's probably wrong, and it's kind of a red flag that says you need to look back at the past week or past few days and see what's causing this, if you can fix it, if you're not doing something that you know will help change it, and all of that good stuff. And then, of course, my other spread for this is going to be my expenses spread. I have one box at the top for my income, one for my reoccurring monthly bills, and the one on the bottom is my personal expenses. But I have also added a box in here this month for craft fair expenses because I know I'm going to have to put that on my credit card, and I want to make sure it's not getting out of control. After that, I'm going to go onto another spread that I'm adding this month. I've done the math, and since I'm basically adding a spread every month by doing these book cover inserts, I have enough pages to add another spread in my monthlies, and I've always liked to keep track of my memories, so I'm adding a page for my memories and then a fitness tracker. Now, I've tried to do a fitness tracker before without much luck, but we'll see how this goes. I'm hoping that it will encourage me to be a little bit more intentional about the physical exercise that I'm doing every day, because I have that year in pixels for physical activity and I am doing it. I just want to record, whether or not it was doing some basic strength exercises before bed, whether it was getting up and stretching for 5 minutes, and all that good stuff. So hopefully I will get better at being more intentional about what exercises I'm actually doing. Then I'm going to start on my weeklies, and I'm going to get all the technical stuff out of the way before I start talking about the book itself. So I work my main part-time job on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So for me, the weekend extends until Monday. Because even though I work my second part-time job sometime in those 3 days, I still consider it part of my weekend because it's not my main part-time job. So because of this, I have my week start on a Tuesday and end on a Monday. And that's one thing I really love about Bujos, is that I have the ability to make something like this, which you would never find in a traditional journal setup. Then I have a micro calendar at the top so I can keep track of where I am in the month, because this is a really weird way to keep track of the weekly, so that kind of helps ground me back into, okay, these are what my micro calendars at the beginning of my journal look like, and this is where this weekly falls in that grand scheme. Then I have a place to keep track of the meals I'm going to cook for the week and the habits I'm trying to build. And I find that when I made one big habit tracker at the beginning of the month, I just never used it. But I've really been enjoying and actually using and filling out these small habit trackers just for the week. And I've been doing it really consistently. So I'm going to keep them on my weeklies for right now until they stop working, which I hope they never do. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the book. So for anyone who doesn't want spoilers, skip to the flip through, which I will bookmark so you don't get the book ruined for you. Now, I've made little designs at the top of the spreads to kind of follow the story, which I thought was a really cute idea. And the main character, Wanda, gets to Earth, and that's kind of the first spread, is her spaceship like landing. And then I'm paying homage to the original cover with a drawing of the close-up eye for the second spread, where like Wanda wakes up in this human body. And then the third spread is her going on this journey through the desert. The fourth spread can be two things. It is a romance novel, so of course she does find love, but there's also this scene with an older character that she really befriends named Walter that just ripped me to pieces. And every time I read it, I still cry, because it's this moment where the main character, Wanda, really kind of understands what these humans have been fighting for, and it's her confrontation with humanity and mortality and all of this really powerful stuff. And she finally, it just like clicks, and she finally gets it, because up until this point, the aliens, or like souls as they call themselves, are used to these like really symbiotic relationships with the species that they kind of take over. They don't really see it as taking over a species, and they don't see their presence as invasive, but rather constructive. Like there's this one species that they combine with, and the souls give the species like direction and purpose. And the closest thing they have to religion is the reverence for life, or their souls, which was a really, really clever play on words. So for Wanda, she just couldn't understand violence and the people's need to fight back until this scene where she is losing her friend. She just experiences this like grief for the first time in her life, and she finally gets it because she doesn't want Walter to go. And she's like, oh, this is why they're fighting us so hard, is because they don't want to go either. And we kind of do take them away from themselves when we inhabit these bodies. And then, of course, the last spread is her kind of giving humanity the key to fight back, which is, how do you take a soul out of a host without killing them both? And then she shows them, okay, if I show you this, you have to promise me that no soul, yours or mine, is going to die in this process. And she shows them, here's where you get the ships to send the souls back to the furthest stars and all this stuff. And I just thought it was so impactful and such an incredible way to look at humanity and violence in that kind of dichotomy. So that's why I love this book so much. Anyways, let me know in the comments if you've read the book, if you like it, if you agree with me. And the movie does not count because they completely left out Walter, who I thought was the most important character in the book. Because it's that moment where she discovers what humanity's all about by facing true mortality. And I read the book because I liked the movie, and then I loved the book. And I was like, oh my god, they left out the best parts of it. That's my big book talk. I don't normally do that. But here's the flip through. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in any vlog type videos of me basically just getting ready for the craft fair and like making stuff for the craft fair. I don't know how I would go about doing it, but if you're interested in watching it, I'll try and make it because it is going to be a very intense, very long process. Also, if you have any book recommendations to either read or you think needs a cover redesign, let me know in the description as well, because I don't have all the books for this year picked out yet, and I do read all the comments that you guys leave. And if you liked the video, hit that thumbs up, and if you're interested in more book cover, book inspired monthly spreads, definitely subscribe to the channel because that's what I'm doing all year. That's the theme for this year, is just book covers. But good luck in March, guys, and I hope you stay creative.